the whole business of printing, I believe, changed the status of communication when it happened. We had the telephone, we have today the email, and we have this big long word called the ICT. What is ICT? And people will say, using the computer. But there's more to this business than meets the eye. And it has indeed revolutionized thinking, working, learning, and we are very much in the midst of this change here in Mauritius. It's not going to be an easy leapfrogging into the future without ICT. But today I have somebody who's done a lot of research in this area, Associate Professor Dr. Supyan Hussain. Welcome.
Thank you.
You've been doing the research in the ICT area, and I believe ICT in Mauritius. How long is it going to take Mauritius to really become ICT savvy or ICT aware or ICT networked?
Well, thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to speak in this program. I happen to know about Mauritius and my interest in Mauritius about 3 years ago when I met a person from Mauritius back in 1999. And I expressed my interest to come to Mauritius to find out what people are doing here. And I talked to somebody, and finally I got to know the Ibn Sina Research Institute. So that's how I come here to Mauritius. Now, we have been working hard on developing the IT or ICT culture in our country, because we think that we cannot compete in terms of, we cannot compete in terms of economic with other countries who probably have cheaper, labor costs and resources. Say, for example, Taiwan, Korea, and other countries as well. So we did leapfrog, having ICT in our country, having the multimedia super corridor in the country. Now, at the same time, we would like to learn what people are doing in other countries as well, especially countries like Mauritius, in the Caribbean. So I haven't had enough information about the development of ICT, especially in education in Mauritius. But this morning, when I talked to a key personnel here, Dr. Lachmir, the director of TEC, I was impressed with the planning that they already have in mind, and in fact in their strategy, the strategic planning, basically to develop the IT culture and to inculcate that values, the importance of IT in Mauritius society. Now, I was also impressed by the fact that the University of Mauritius has launched a virtual learning center, which I find a right strategy, right approach, as what Japan has been doing for many, many years. Now, last February, I was there for about a month. I attached to this National Institute of Multimedia, a body which is organized or formed by the Japanese government under Ministry of Education. And this body coordinates the use of technology, either is ground-based or air, open air using satellite, and they help to coordinate in terms of the communication, the delivery system, plus the development of teaching materials, for that particular platform. And I think perhaps Mauritius can achieve, quite fast in terms of that, because they have the right strategy in that manner. Compared to what happening in Malaysia is a bit different. So I believe that with the synergy, with the synergy of the people from different parts of expertise in Mauritius, plus some help from other people, from other institutions, coordination with other institution in the world, I think Mauritius is doing a good thing, and it probably can expedite the process. Yeah.
While helping trade, commerce and business, it's also an extremely good aid for self-learning. I mean, long ago students in Mauritius had to travel, and without traveling and spending loads of money, they couldn't go through an education. But today with e-learning and distance education, A lot of this can happen right here on home base. But does that rob you of something that students should be having, Professor?
Yeah, well, I think given the current scenario, we cannot compare, apple and apple in the past. Today is between apple and orange. Perhaps there are some benefit, a lot of benefit actually when we use e-learning, when we use technology, which perhaps cannot be achieved or accomplished when we use or when we go by the traditional teaching. I'm not saying that the technology should replace teachers. Now, technology cannot exist in a vacuum. We have to use the technology appropriately in the appropriate context, and not all teaching can be done via technology. I think the face-to-face is still important because there are some values and some rationale that cannot be communicated via technology. Say, for example, in my case, I'm teaching language. And I train teachers English language, and I train teachers to to teach language. It can be Bahasa in my language. It can also be in other languages, including foreign languages. But basically, my students are all English language teachers. Now, there are things that when we teach language, we cannot convey by technology. For example,
absolutely.
Yeah. For example, gesture, intonation pattern, things. Our posture, the way we act, all those non-verbal communication elements sometimes cannot be communicated via technology in print form or even in the web base. So we need people, face to face. So I think it's not robbing, it's not taking away everything, from teachers, but it enhance and it facilitate the learning process.
It supplements even.
It's supplement, yeah, it's supplement. And in fact, when we have technology, we can do a lot of things that cannot be accomplished by teachers. For example, the recording of the performance of the student, which may be very difficult to do it manually. The other thing I like about technology is that it offers you privacy of learning. In day-to-day conventional teaching, sometimes students are afraid, shy away, and things like that.
To ask questions.
Ask questions. So with the technology, which never be tiring, it can always entertain the student needs, and student can move at their own pace, as they go on. Yeah.
And probably in Mauritius, the importance of ICT is felt at this moment because we are now taking off at another level, and both the English language and IT has become yes, it's part and parcel of modern thinking.
Right.
But how fast or how slow is this going to be? Because we are a country in a hurry.
Well, how fast and slow depends on the management. Depends on the people who manage the whole scenario. I think like for example, in our case in Malaysia, the directive, the top management, the top-down, direction really make a paradigm shift in the country. Sometimes we cannot wait for people in the grassroots to say yes or no, but I think we have to make a rather brave decision to make the change in the society. We can, for example, we can try to accommodate people's thinking, people's idea, people's opinion, but I think at the same time, the country has to make a quick decision on whether to go fast or slow. There are many other factors that perhaps the decision makers have to make or have to consider. But the strategic planning, considering the future of
the infrastructure,
the
telecommunications,
exactly, the power supply,
the basics have to be
some of the basics have
out.
to be considered in the first place. Yeah.
What is your own experience of ICT in other countries, Professor?
Yeah, when I was in US, I was in US for 10 years, and I was trained to be educationist and technologist. And I noticed that the move in US is quite fast, and they're willing to share, they're willing to learn. I think that culture has to be
inculcated,
in the country. And then when I was in Japan, I think, for example, Japan is another fast-moving country in terms of technology, even faster than US in some cases. I think what more important is the attitude of the people that are willing to change. If we are not willing to change, then we are stagnant, forever, and we'll be left behind. With the volume, with the speed of the telecommunication now, with high volume of information going through very at fast rate, I don't think we can, sit there and then talk and say whether or not we want to go for it or not. Even my student, for example, with the given information heavy load in the internet, they can't rely on teachers anymore. They can't rely on decision makers anymore. They have to on their own. And in fact, the teachers, the instructors, the usual lecturers have to move on at the same rate as the technology. Although we are not driven by technology, but we have to keep update with the current development. Otherwise, the teachers become obsolete.
Absolutely. And I think what we're also saying is the whole rate of globalization. I mean, we are overtaken by things. And if we don't understand the new language, then we will be marginalized. And with trade and commerce, we are talking about an urgency in the business. Because if we don't sell our goods and services, we are going to go into unemployment, and the slide downward is certain. So I suppose when you're looking and doing this research in Mauritius, who are you targeting? Which are the applications you're looking at? Because ICT is like a telephone. It's a mode. But what are the applications in Mauritius that you're looking at?
Yeah, my specialization is in education. I think any country that want to establish a new paradigm or new culture or inculcate new values has to go through education. I think education is the best place for teachers, for decision makers to inculcate these values among the new generation. Now, in my case, for example, I train teachers how to develop materials, language-based, web software, because there is a need for it, and I want the teachers. I want the teachers to be able to produce. I want the teachers to be able to design, rather than to rely on outside sources, or perhaps or off the shelf courseware. Some software on the shelf are not competent, or maybe are not appropriate for our particular culture. Some foreign element may not be appropriate, for Mauritian, for example. So at the end of the day, we do not want teachers to be passive users. We want them to
be active,
to be part of the designing, to be part of the decision-making process, in education. So I think when it comes to application, the teachers have to be trained how to develop material, rather than sitting there and use as a passive user.
I think the ICT is a very challenging tool, but the real thinking and the genius has to be the users, the teacher, or the person who is the source of information. He or she will have to learn how to reformat it into a new system, or for a new system, and this will be the challenge. And I can tell you, some of our old teachers who have gone through the grind may find it difficult to use this telephone.
Well, in principle, I think when there is an innovation, there's always a group of people who resist. So I think that's part of the process in changing part of the process in the change of paradigm. And
maybe mixing the young and the old together will help.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in and giving us your insights. Merci.
Thank you.